Artificial intelligence is going to change the future of work, but it's not the only thing that's going to be going on. We need to talk about demographics and remote work as well. I'm Dr. Bill Connerly. I connect the dots between the economy and business. This is another in my series of artificial intelligence and the economy. Artificial intelligence, AI, will have a large impact on the future of work, but it's not all that's going on. We'll have demographic change affecting the future of work, as well as remote work and the conflict between workers and managers. Let's start by talking about demographics, because that's a huge factor and under-recognized. I've looked at the projections from the Census Bureau on the working age population, and if you're skeptical of projections, I don't blame you, but everybody who will be of working age in the next decade has already been born. There are some minor uncertainties about death rates and immigration, but basically we have a good picture of what the future of the working age population looks like. This chart shows the decade by decade growth, the number of people of working age using some census categories that date back to 1850. Look at that peak. The 4 decades from 1970 through 2010 had a huge increase in the working age population. First, the baby boomers came of age, and then many of the children of the baby boomers came of working age. And at the same time, we also had women becoming much more interested in being part of the workforce outside of the home. So this era put managers, employers in the catbird seat. There were always job applicants waiting to fill empty positions. A manager could say to an employee, "Hey, Connerly, time for a haircut," to quote one of my early managers when I was 18 years old working in retail. So that was a huge change. That was then. This is now. You are now in the decade with the lowest growth of the working age population since the Civil War. The lowest growth in the working age population since the Civil War. It'll get a little better in the decade from 2030 to 2040, but only a little bit better. This is going to be huge. People who have a vision of growing their business are going to have to scramble to find people. And even if you think you can use productivity enhancements to avoid having to hire more people, there are going to be other companies trying to poach your employees. It's going to be a dog-eat-dog, employer-eat-employer world, and that is going to continue for many, many years. Now let's talk about remote work. Some people like it, some people don't. Some managers like it, some managers do not. But overall, we have a significant portion of the workforce that would prefer to work at home, either every day or at least 3 days a week, something like that. Managers increasingly want people on the job, and we've just had a recent report that promotions are more common for people who are showing up in person rather than working remotely. So we have this clash between the workers and the managers over remote work. Well, today it's the workers who have the bargaining power. And I believe that managers who are adamant about having people show up for like office work, well, those managers will have a hard time enforcing those rules or have a hard time attracting the talent. Now, certainly some jobs are going to be in person. It's hard to imagine a waiter serving food to diners remotely. And I talked to a soccer referee who shows up in the pouring rain, even though he would prefer to be doing that remotely. Yeah, maybe that's going to happen with the camera technology. But this clash between remote work and on-the-job work is going to be part of the tension over the tight labor market. Now let's talk about artificial intelligence and how that will change it. We know that some occupations are already benefiting from artificial intelligence. Computer programmers are much more productive. The AI cannot do the whole job. You still need the talent to identify what change the person wants in the computer code, and it's important that the AI's recommended changes be tested and verified. But still, programmers are far more productive. They get more done in an hour of time using AI, and that means that for a given task, less labor will be needed. We also see this in writing. If you're trying to write marketing copy or journalists summarizing, say, a corporate financial report, the AI is pretty good at putting words together, and its grammar is very good. So we're going to see that in many areas. Some of the clerical and administrative tasks that are still being done personally will be done through some version of AI, whether that's the large language models or just a better system for seeing if all the boxes have been checked. And in many cases, tedious report writing is going to be taken over. Now, I've mentioned things like journalism, but think about doctors, nurses, other healthcare professionals. They not only see a patient, but they write in the chart, either by hand or now they are typing, but AI is going to free up a good bit of their time. So across a wide swath of occupations, AI will allow people to do more work in a given amount of time, but it's not going to have a big impact in the next few years on the hands-on professions. Hands-on professions I'm thinking of as construction trades, carpenter, plumbing, electrician. I'm thinking about serving food, massaging somebody at the spa, and we even have people going to yoga classes because they want the personal connection, even though you can pop up a yoga class on YouTube. So there's still going to be some of these hands-on workers. When people talk about AI, they often mix in robotics. Robotics use some machine learning, but robotics is not making progress as fast as these large language models like ChatGPT. ChatGPT benefited from a huge data set. The folks developing all of these large language models scraped the web for everything they could find. They used Project Gutenberg, which digitized old books, and they've got billions and billions, maybe trillions of words in their database. But for robotics, it's hard to get all of those observations. Most of our machines are not tied to sensors, and we're not capturing that data. And even when we are, we're talking about thousands of observations rather than billions of observations. So robotics will make some progress, but it's not making the huge progress that we're seeing. So the future of work is hands-on stuff will benefit in terms of the inputs and the outputs, but not the actual hands-on work. In manufacturing, as an example, the AI use cases that are prominent are demand forecasting. Well, that's not running a machine in a factory. That is predicting how much of those machines you need to run. Another use case is checking your supply chain. Well, that's not running the machine. That's making sure the machine has the input parts. There will be some benefit from predictive maintenance, figuring out what machine needs to be torn down. And that applies as well to other areas. Maybe we'll get the right pothole filled at the right time, but it's still going to be a human shoveling to fix the pothole. There are going to be sectors where fewer people are needed for a given amount of work. So now we need to ask which sectors will have increased work because people can do increased work. Healthcare comes to mind. Healthcare needs more healthcare professionals, such as doctors and nurses and the other trades. And if we can free up their time by using AI, that's like having more doctors and nurses. Look at those computer programmers. The question I have in my mind is, okay, for the work that's being done today, we probably need fewer programmers than we have. But is there a backlog of work that we would like to have done? How many companies would like to see improvements in their data management systems, in their websites, but they have not wanted to compete with Google and Facebook for talent, so work that they would like to have done has not been done. For many other office jobs, I think that we'll see less demand for workers. We'll need fewer people, but that's coming at a great time of this tight labor market. I think it does mean that there will be, I won't say fewer jobs, but less pressure to raise wages. And people may have to accept flat wages. So that sounds negative for the overall economy. But what we saw in past industrial revolutions, like the early improvement in manufacturing of textiles and then the railroads, is that the cost of goods and services went down. Things got cheaper. Inflation is a monetary phenomenon, but the purchasing power of an hour of work is going to increase. The purchasing power of an hour of work is going to increase because of the advances in artificial intelligence that makes stuff generally cheaper relative to work. So yeah, it's going to be competitive for getting jobs in some areas, but I think that overall we're going to benefit. So what does that mean for the overall future of work? Well, here's an answer that you can go to the bank with. It depends. Some sectors are going to have fewer job openings, and it's going to be a little bit harder to get work in those areas, but others will be just fine, even improving. So if you're wondering about the future of work in your particular environment, your particular business, occupation, or industry, look carefully at how much of the work really has to be done hands-on, like the plumbing, and how much can be done by artificial intelligence, and look for changes in the mix of jobs based upon the particular tasks that are done in that sector. I'm Dr. Bill Connerly. I connect the dots between the economy and business. I also put together a newsletter once a month in graphical format, a 60-second update, everything you need to know, well, some of what you need to know about the economy, and I'd love to share it with you. Just use this QR code to subscribe. Thanks for watching.